Hello, everybody. So, today I want to talk about what is quickly becoming a really hot issue for the upcoming presidential election: the cost of college tuition. It's gotten a lot of buzz from both sides, well, all sides really, and there have been a few plans put out there, but it can be a bit confusing. So, I want to just run through them, and let's start with the president's plan. He wants to make the first 2 years of college tuition free to all students. Cost estimate puts it about 8 billion per year on average, which would be split between the federal government and the states. There would be a requirement to keep your GPA over at least 2.5 to maintain the benefits, or you'd be responsible for tuition on your own again. Now, that's a lot of money, but it's important to remember that the federal government already spends over 30 billion on Pell Grants and other aid programs every year, and some of those wouldn't be necessary anymore, so ultimately it would probably be a significantly smaller cost than the official estimate. Still, the plan seems somewhat vague as to how that increase of cost would be paid, and if they could work that out, it could be a really great plan. Then there's Rand Paul. Now, I'm sure it's no secret that I'm not a huge fan of Rand Paul, but let's take an objective look at his idea and see if it's a better one. So, the short version is that he wants it to be 100% tax deductible expense for the entirety of your working life. And there's some vagueness about this too. Um, for one thing, what does that even mean? Does that mean if you spend 50,000 on tuition that you've got a $50,000 deduction every year till you're 65? That'd be pretty cool, right? Especially if you're from a wealthy family that sent you to a super high cost private university so that you would actually get that gigantic deduction for your gigantic tuition. Now, according to Libby Nelson of Vox, in 2012, tax deductible tuition cost the government $512 million, with more than half of that money going to families making more than $100,000 per year. So, what you've got is an expansion of an existing policy that already disproportionately benefits the wealthy. So this probably wouldn't help the average American family that much, and it doesn't actually make tuition more affordable. It just means that the more you spend, the more you save later. There is also some speculation based on the history of government subsidies that this plan could actually result in higher tuition across the board. There's certainly no protections in place against that happening. Plus, there would be some massive budget implications as a huge chunk of tax revenue just disappears into the wind. I really wanted to like his idea. When he talks about tuition prices, he's very right. I mean, they've been rising essentially just because they can. And he starts out by talking sense for the American people, but then he provides a solution that really only benefits, his wealthy donors. I wanted to be surprised by him, but in researching this, I really wasn't. If I have missed some part of his plan, please let me know. I'm aching to be proven wrong here. But his plan is terrible unless you happen to be incredibly wealthy. Then there's Bernie Sanders. Good old Bernie, the Sandman. Not gonna lie, it's gonna be difficult for me to keep my own biases out of this because I really like Bernie. But I will try. The short version is we make college free for everyone and pay for that by putting a tax on high volume stock trades on Wall Street. So essentially, all those big banks that we had to bail out a few years back, well, they pay for us to go to college. Sanders' plan draws upon various European nations for inspiration, and quite frankly, most of Europe offers free college, and it works out pretty well for them, so why don't we? We need a better educated workforce to remain competitive. Now, there are some concerns with his plan. First, it would require quite a bit more top down regulation. Now, this may or may not be a bad thing. It's difficult to tell what kind of effect it would have on quality of education. Um, it does have protections in place to keep tuition prices from rising because essentially what's happened is an increased ability to pay means that they can just raise their prices. And that's it's unfettered capitalism. And the unintended consequences of government subsidies. Second, it is by far the most expensive of the plans, and it's unclear how the program might be sustainable, say, during a recession, when those stock trades don't bring in the kind of tax revenue they do during good years. And third, just like Obama's plan, it does rely on the states to pony up a fair chunk as well, when many states are slashing education budgets. It's also noteworthy that at the moment, he's already introduced a bill to do this, and he knows it has zero chances of passing Republican-controlled Congress. He's well aware of this. His goal was just to get people talking about it and thinking outside the box, judging by how many people are now talking about making education more affordable. I'm going to call it a success. Hillary Clinton has talked about the idea of making tuition more affordable, but as of this recording has not released any sort of plan to do so. She's just talking about it. So clearly this is a big issue, and there are a lot of ideas on the table. I readily and happily admit that Bernie Sanders' plan is by far my favorite. In terms of actual sustainability, though, I think a merging of his plan with the president's might be more feasible. Essentially, we take Sanders' budgeting ideas and apply them to the president's two-year college idea. So why is this such a big deal? You know, few people today realize that there was a time when high school wasn't free like it is today, and when the government made it universal, it really ramped up our economy by educating our entire workforce, not just the wealthy. As noted in a New York Times article, both history and economics suggest that nothing may have a greater effect on the future of living standards than educational policy. The very same article very eloquently finishes with the following. Nearly a century has passed since the universal high school movement took off in the United States, and the world is clearly a far different place today than it was 100 years ago, with success depending vastly more on knowledge than it used to. If 13 years of education, K through 12, was the right amount of education for the typical citizen back then, it surely is not still the right amount today. Clearly, making college more affordable and available to all our citizens is important. It does seem like no one has yet proposed the perfect plan for it, but people are talking, and there have been some really good ideas put forth. I love Senator Sanders' plan, but like I said, perhaps merging it with the president's would be a good place to start. It's a good, strong step forward, and it's not so huge a step as to make every conservative just dig his heel in. And like I said, though, you know, there do need to be protections in place to prevent, you know, the increased subsidizing from just resulting in increased tuition. Basically, at some point, we've got to go in there and say, hey, we're going to let other people go to college and we're going to pay for it, and you, no price gouging. You're already profitable, and if you'll just hang on a minute, you'll find that by having more people going, you're going to be even more profitable. So I would really like to hear from anyone who thinks that my coverage of this was unfair or incomplete. If there's any pertinent information I missed, please comment below. I did have a limited time to research this. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, but you can also like That Crazy Liberal on Facebook for easier access to these links, along with tons of other information I couldn't fit into the videos. Have a great day, and thanks for watching. But you can also like That Crazy Liberal on Facebook. Sorry, alarm.